Welcome to Bunker Hill. This is one of 10 Wilmot cemeteries. It's one of the 2 largest and our 2 active cemeteries. Of the 10 cemeteries, we have some family cemeteries, Thompson's and Tewksbury's. We also have Church Place over in the flat, which is I think our only cemetery that's attached to a church. Tewksbury had a church next to it, and then it was moved up the hill to North Wilmot. You know, we've got people here, it's amazing, somebody from Bradford and New London and Elkins and Springfield. So this is a really great turnout. You never know what's going to happen. So where do I want to go next? If you don't know about Find a Grave, it's a great spot to go if you're looking for genealogy and cemetery information. And we've been mapping our cemeteries, and some of that information, if not all of it, is going there or will be there. So you notice the flags on the graves. Those are veterans flags, and the cemetery trustees put those out fresh every year. In New Hampshire, I think we take great pride in our cemeteries and our history. And so you can see there's money from the town to maintain things, and we've done, I think our trustees have done a super job maintaining these things. Cemeteries are a place of grief and remembrance. They're also focused on healing, and so please be respectful in the cemetery. Stones are fragile, so don't sit on them or expect them to stand up if you lean over on them heavily. So there are a variety of monuments here, as you'll see when we go through on the tour. Karen also pointed out that there's a geocache site here if anybody's into geocache. I don't know that much about it. This happens to be my favorite cemetery. So as you walk through, there's fabulous views here in every direction, literally. And if you have any questions or any personal information as we go along that you know about any of the monuments or people buried here, please feel free to add that as we go along. We're all casual and friendly. Jody, WCA.
Hello. Oh, yes. I'd love to say something. Thank you, Chris. I want to thank the Wilmot Cemetery Trustees for putting on this really great Wander Wilmot program. Wander Wilmot is a monthly program that the Wilmot Community Association launched this year. It, as it suggests, we go explore the nooks and crannies of Wilmot by foot, typically, the history, nature, all of the interesting pieces of it. Next month, we'll be heading up Bog Mountain with Bill Chasen on October 15th to look at the geology. That is his, one of his many, he's kind of a Renaissance man. He did our bird walk. He launched our program in May with a bird walk, and we'll be almost ending it in October with a geology walk. And then in November, we go up, we're still deciding the location, but we're going to go out with Tim Wallace, who is a forester and a surveyor who has this knack for looking at the forest, you know, a sea of trees and green, and saying, there's a cellar hole right there. It's like, where? And so he's a great interpreter of the land, and he'll be interpreting past uses of these old historic property. So if you want to learn more about those programs, you can sign up for a newsletter, or I have a card of upcoming programs with the Wilmot Community Association. We are a member-based organization, so if you like what we do, of course we invite your membership, but I know you're here for the cemetery tour, so I'm going to hand it over to the cemetery trustees, and thank you for all of your work on this program. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Doug McDonald, one of the trustees. I think I'm just starting my 4th term, so I've been doing this for a little while. I live right next door, not that house here, but over the next field, so we're close
Beyond
by.
the
So we,
rooster.
no, that's not our rooster. I'll talk a little bit about the work of the trustees, and of course the first thing would be to make sure that the cemeteries are gridded out in such a way that you can locate lots and sell them to people and for burials and all that. So we kind of upgraded what we have, and we've done quite a bit more with that, and Pasha may talk about that if we have a little bit of time in terms of he's locating stones within fractions of an inch, and they're going to be on a program and all that, so that's pretty cool. Then of course we sell lots to families and individuals, and then assist in the burials. And we do here, we allow casket and urns for cremation burials. There are a few instances in some of the outlying cemeteries where we would allow maybe a cremation burial, but just here and for Pine Hill would be for the caskets. The maintenance. About 6 years ago, the focus of the trustees really changed because at that time Al Price came on, and he was a big driver in terms of doing more in terms of the upkeep and maintenance of our cemeteries. And if you've seen the cemeteries over the last 6 years, you'll know what I'm talking about. And some of them have been dramatically changed. It was a lot of work, and he's the driving force behind it. And we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for that. The work we've done over the last 5 or 6 years on the stones and all that easily have saved the town thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars, because that's a really expensive deal if you hire people in to do it. But he's taken on the task of learning how to fix stones and upright them and patch them together, and done pretty good at it, I'll tell you. One of the first things we did was make sure that we had the brush cleared away from the walls, and then we started working on taking down trees in and outside of the cemeteries that would be a danger to the stones. The first year we took down a very large maple right there, and did pruning on the other trees, and that's gone on in most all the cemeteries over the last 4 or 5 years. Each year we hire a tree company, and they do that work. It just so happens that the Conservation Commission has started, like 4 years ago, a program to start replacing the trees that have been taken out of the town. Nobody was doing that, so the Conservation Commission took that on, and we've been doing it for the last 4 years, and we do 3 or 4 trees each year, and that's one of them right there, and there's 2 more over there, so we have 3 here and 7 at Pine Hill, because we made the decision, some liked it, some didn't, take down those big pines that were getting old, and we figured they were going to be a real hazard. In fact, we had a storm not long after that took down a lot of pine trees in Wilmot, and it just missed that area. It could have been a real problem. But anyhow, so we put 7 in there, and next year we'll put 2 more in, because those trees are not going to live forever. And so we'll have a ring of like 7 or 8 trees here. So that's another thing we've done. We have a contract for mowing of the cemetery, so they're mowed on a regular basis. We have a really good contractor that does a wonderful job, as you can see. Then we get into the cleaning and the repair of the stones, and that's quite a job. I'll talk a little bit about the cleaning, because I was kind of in charge of that. We went over all of the cemeteries with plastic tools, scrapers and brushes, and took all the lichen and mosses off from all the stones. And that was the first step. Then we go around and spray them with a special biological cleaner called D2. You can look it up. They use it all over the place in DC and all that. It's wonderful stuff. What it does is it inhibits the growth of lichens and moss and things like that stain the stones. And it works really well on marble. And so if you notice, these stones, some of them look like they did when they were put up 150 years ago now. But it takes place over time. It takes months for it to work, and then it prohibits the growth of that. And it doesn't have any acids or salts or anything like that. It's friendly to the stone. which is not the case if you power wash them or put bleach or acid on them. So that's worked really well. We found that to be a real godsend. Yeah, that's a good point though. Don't do things to the stones unless you know what you're doing. You know, you don't use metal tools, you don't put acid on them, you don't power wash them because the stones are obviously very fragile over time. And then the repair of the stones, that's been a huge job. And Al and Marcus have done a lot of it, and other people have helped too. But I don't know how many stones we've uprighted. I mean, hundreds, right? They were leaning, so we bring them up. We have two tripods with chain falls to lift them and to get them up and get underneath them and put pea stone and stuff under them to make them straight again, or mostly straight again, upright. And then a lot of stones were broken, and Al's gotten really good at being able to fix them, epoxy them together, grout them and all that. And it's, because if they, as he can tell you, if they lay on the ground very long, they do disintegrate, and that's happened. I think the best example of this would be up at Tewksbury. If you're familiar with that cemetery, it doesn't look now like it did 3 years ago. It's amazing what they've done up there in terms of getting those stones back together again, locating them, sometimes finding bases that were buried down deep in the ground. So that's some of the work we do. It's quite a bit. So that would be what I would have to say.
Doug,
Yes.
what is the name of that stuff?
D2, capital D2.
Thank you.
It's great. It's not cheap.
Yeah, no,
but it works.
generally aren't.
Really
That's
works.
okay, so it works.
Like in a hardware store.
What's that? You can buy it, probably not at the hardware. You buy it online very easily. We buy it in 5-gallon jugs. But you can buy it on Amazon and places like that in smaller amounts.
Okay.
It truly works. It's not just for stone either, but it just works really, really well. Okay, who's next?
You mow around the stones with a weed whacker?
They do weed whack around them.
Before they invented weed whackers, I wonder how they did that.
Seriously. It's amazing to watch. This company's been doing it. It's kind of a neat story. I don't want to take too much time, but back when Pine Hill started, it was run by a private group up until, what, 6 years ago, 7 years ago?
Just 3
Well, even more recently, yeah. A group of mainly ladies who were running it. They raised money and they ran that, so they didn't have much money to maintain it. So this kid, when he was like in middle school, would go out there with a hand mower, mow it, he and his mother. And over the years, he's got his own business now. It's called Perkins Landscaping. And he's kept the contract all these years, and he does all 10 of our cemeteries now. So it's kind of a neat story. So the kid's got vested interest in the cemeteries, and it shows. They do a wonderful job. Yeah, they mow and then weed whack around each stone and try not to hit people's flowers and all, but they do a really good job.
They do the spring and fall cleanup.
And they do
for us.
clean up any leaves and branches and stuff. Yeah?
Before they invented weed whackers, they must have used sheep.
That's a good question. Yeah, who knows? But that's all I have, so who's next? Pasha? You?
Al.
Oh, Al. You're going to be next.
Want
All
me to
right,
step
there you
in?
go.
All right, all right.
Step on, Al.
And I'm Al Price, one of the trustees, and I'll give you a little history about Bunker Hill Cemetery in this area. The cemetery dates from 1915, when it was incorporated as a cemetery, and this area was
Did
a...
you say 1950?
Didn't I say 18?
No.
No, you didn't. I was gonna say.
Sorry.
Yeah.
18,
I missed it by 100 years.
it's 1815.
Yeah.
1815.
And so this was a 10-acre parcel donated to the town by the Bunker family. And we are lucky enough today to have a descendant of the Bunker family standing behind me, Barbara Bunker Fawnin.
Oh, good.
Her family, their Bunker's buried over here. We'll see them as we go around. Anyway, this 10-acre piece of land was then divided into a cemetery, and the rest of it was a muster field or parade ground for the militia in town. they would do their drilling and marching here, their ceremonies here. So they incorporated the cemetery in 1815, and they started down there at the road and came this way, and the first 10 rows or so are the old section. This new section is 6 rows. You can tell by the granite that these are new stones, with this access road coming down the center between the 3 rows on that side and the 3 new rows on this side. And that's where we sell most of our lots. Along with the cemetery being formed at that time, right across the street, they formed the town pound as well. This was the center of the community. They started to build a townhouse, town meeting house up here on the hill, and there was a dispute, and it never got finished, and it was finally taken away. But this was the center of action for Wilmot in the beginning.
We'll say something about the town pound. People don't know what that is.
Well, the town pound is where stray animals were taken so that they wouldn't damage property. And if an animal did damage the property, it was taken there. The pound keeper would keep that animal, and if somebody claimed it, they then had to pay the damages that it made, plus a little fine to pay this fellow. There was a job earlier in the late 1700s called a hog reeve, specifically for gathering up hogs that were causing damage. But the pound was an expansion on that, and there was all the animals kept there. But they got away from their owner. In 1972, there was a wall between what was the old parade ground and the old cemetery that was taken away. Well, the stones were put around the perimeter. You can see in the back, the stone wall is about 8 feet wide. And that then started the new section, and they laid this out very methodically. And that is the section we use today. The acreage now for the cemetery is 2.3 acres. As you look at it over the top of the hill here. Our first burial was in 1960 or 1816. Trying to screw that up. So a year after they formed it, there may have been earlier burials, but they were rather ad hoc, and we don't have any monuments for them. I think I about covered it. You probably want to get up on your way up the hill as we talk about the area and the stones and all, and as we go along. And Pasha, I think, is going to start us on that.
Yep. And there's a little map program. I think everybody has it. I see lots of them running around now. And there's 1,093 headstones here. And Wilmot's population is 1,400, so and there's more than one person on a stone. So there's probably more people here than there are in Wilmot. And we're just going to show you some of them. There's all kinds of, we're starting in this section, and we're just going to do a big loop. And there's about 60 people. So, and if you know people that are here, you have family or loved ones here, tell your friends. This whole place is for the dead, and it's for the people that remember them. If it's one of yours, then feel free. So we'll head up and we'll just kind of take turns. Stopping points for our tour. That's so we can find our way through here. That is full of water so that people can water plants or flowers for their friends. So So this is Krista Petri, and she's the oldest person. She's born in Poland, and she died in 1975. And she's the oldest person here. According to the stone, she's 107 years old. So, so that's she holds that honor now. I think we have somebody coming in who's 105, so she's close on the tail at this point. But and this is probably the main thing I'll show. The other thing we're going to do here is do a little bit of Cemetery 101 and just sort of show you some features of cemeteries of this era so that you can see what they are, because not everybody is familiar with it. This one has two hands holding each other. Often that's a couple, a loving couple, that it just shows that people were close to each other. But there's all kinds of nuances in these hands. Sometimes they're like Masonic handshakes, and you can see that whatever finger it is that's changed. Sometimes one hand is limp and the other one is strong. But there's all kinds of symbolism on these that is really interesting. I have a book on cemetery symbols down on the table if you want to look at that. But also these guys ran a store in Wilmot. And our next person is Eli, the bookbinder. And he's a World War II veteran. And so the war veterans have flags on them, and these things are called flag holders appropriately. And often it gives the name of the conflict that the person was in. It says that he was in World War II. And often you see religious or organizational symbols. There's a Star of David on his. So, so that's Eli. We'll just keep moving if there's any questions. So.
Hey, Pasha, those two that are so close there, Salaji and the older
Yeah.
person, that's awful close. Are they related?
No. They are? Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Joe and Mary. Mary is the daughter of Teresa.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Didn't know that.
It's good to know. So, yeah.
We just learned something, huh?
Yeah, if you know, a lot of you probably have more history of some of the families here, so I am eager to learn that. So speaking of which, I think a lot of you know Kenneth Clark, our newest wife Celeste, and so she died rather early due to cancer. So this is her place. It's a very sweet place, but the family has a strong ongoing interest in Disney, and so it's kind of cool. There's Mickey Mouse and Goofy and cartoon characters on it, which is nice. It gives a little bit of kind of levity to the situation. So this is a nice one. You can see it's kind of well tended. There's a little motorcycle and an angel and all kinds of stuff there.
You know, I forgot, we have one with a stone with a beer can.
There's one with the beer holder in it. So they're not all stones are look like gravestones. These people are nice enough to leave a bench for us. And it's also kind of unique. It has photos on it and some models of their favorite dogs. I guess the dogs are long gone, but
Sandy's still alive.
Sandy's still here,
Still lives in Wilmot.
and we'll find some in the older sections. There's actually some frames for old tintype photos. So we actually found one in North Wilmot. Just the frame was left, but this is not a new practice. They've been, they were doing this in the 1800s. So this one's kind of sweet. And then this is their son, right?
Yes, Ryan.
Yeah, and he died in high school, and his whole class left basically a memory for him. So his whole class's initials and messages to him are right there. So it's just kind of a
Sad time.
sweet but sad moment for him. But but sometimes you see sort of quirky little things like that in here. So, and he has a DeLorean on his car. So.
Well, that's part of the healing too with
Yeah.
cemeteries, when people get to do stuff like that, which I'm sure you all know.
Yeah. So could Chris, Doug, Alan, you guys are welcome to speak for all of you.
So these are flags up during the night, that's the lady. So they got a solar panel. They put the light up on light bulbs.
All his high school friends. Yeah. Yesterday, or Thursday when we were here, you could really read well everything that was on there.
Selma Cuccinello was on Flight 11 above Boston on 9/11. Went into the plane flew into the Trade Center. As you remember, I also had some friends on that flight. Anyway, her grave is here with her husband, but the cenotaph we have here is with the flag is also in her memory and all the people lost on 9/11.
But were there more from Wilmot? That were on the phone?
No, just all of them here from Wilmot. And then right next to her is our small artist colony. Townsend Howe was a noted painter in the area. He passed away back in 2007. Just recently, Sam Wiles, who was also a noted artist here, he was a potter. They say a Potter Place, but he lived right almost across the street.
On Pound Road.
On Pound Road, and his family wanted him next to Townsend, so we have our little artist area. Sam served in the Navy.
Good.
He was a very nice man and a great ambassador for the town of Wilmot. He was very welcoming to me when I moved here.
Okay.
Very good.
Beautiful stuff,
Yep.
dragonflies and a lot of celadon green.
A lot of us have that, those green pots in our house from him. Yeah.
Ginkgo was another ginkgo leaves. When he could get them, he used those.
Yeah.
9/11, some people's remains still
Prior to
weren't
moving up
found.
here,
Did
yeah,
they
you
find
didn't ever
those?
live there that
Does
long.
anyone know that?
Not that I know of. I don't think many people in the plains.
So why does Townsend? There's two stones for Townsend?
This is this is his main stone with his wife, and this is the U.S. military issues stones for people who served, and any confirmed veteran, I think, with good standing. And so, so there's this flat kind, and then there's this upright kind. So those, you'll see a couple of them that are sort of have this official military look to them, and that's what it is. I mentioned, I'll just point to the Nicholson one there. A lot of them do have sort of symbols for organizations that they were in, or religious symbols. And the thing at the top with the little compass and the G, and it looks like a diamond there, that's a Masonic symbol. So you'll see those on a lot of the graves of people who were Masons here. But there's all kinds of little symbols on these things, and that's a good example. Yeah.
My aunt and uncle are buried next door. They have flat stones, and my uncle served in World War II
Oh, great.
at Lewis Pinard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, feel free to point out your family here. That's what we're all about here. Yeah.
Can you tell by the graves whether it's cremated remains or a body?
No, you can't really tell. So, and some of them have multiple people who take them. So, next one is Boo Morecombe. It's actually here. I stopped early. Guess he went by Boo or AR. But he was a pole vaulter in the Olympic Games in 1948. And he also was a veteran of both World War II and Korea. So it's one of the few that has 2 flags here. So, so we have an Olympic athlete here.
Did he also
And he
compete in
competed
the
in what they
Senior
call the
Olympics?
senior games into his 80s.
I don't know.
Very successfully, and it's kind of neat. His daughter has been the track coach at the high school for decades. Runs of the family, I guess.
Okay. And Al, you probably want to talk about DeRoy. And then
As we walk down here, John DeRoy, who passed away just a few years ago, was a veteran of the Korean War. He was in the battle at the Incheon Reservoir where the Marines were cut off by the Chinese when they entered the war. And their instructions were just to try to make their way to the sea. And it was a horrible retreat, or as the Marines call it, an advance to the rear. But he was wounded in that. After the war, he went back to school. He wound up as a professor of thermodynamics at MIT. He also worked for the CIA as an operative. So he had quite a storied career.
He was a winemaker too. When Al and I were here when he was interred, they had one of the last bottles of his wine that he'd made left, and needless to say, only one person drank the wine, and then the rest was ceremoniously poured. But it didn't look very good. But anyway, it was a nice thought, and it was fun, and it was a spectacular day like this.
Oh, great. Yeah, and this is another good example where they call them grave goods, I guess, in the literature, but most people leave stones or coins or rocks if their family's remembering it. It's one of the ways that we know when we're working here that, okay, if somebody's come here and is remembering them, and so we pay attention to that. You see stuffed animals for children, often, that kind of a thing. So, but it's just an interesting way that people grieve and connect with their families. So.
And I should have mentioned the back of the stone, if you want to come around here, has an elaborate etching on it of John in the center, or a chair in the center with John and his 2 wives, Elvira, who was a concert pianist, and Maureen, who he married later in life. They're all 3 buried here.
Is the shape of it anything special?
I don't know about the shape, but takes quite a while to gather what they etched on there, the trees and the mountains.
And then these stones in the corners with the D are called cornerstones. And so, I guess obviously, but you'll see these especially more in the older section. But it kind of marks out the full area that they have.
Should there be 4 of them?
Yeah, I think the other 2 are going to be up there. Some of them have 3.
I think they're down this way.
Do the cornerstones mark a family plot or
Yeah.
an individual grave?
Either way.
Okay, so onwards and we're going onwards to the unknown over this way. We're heading into the old section.